Hey everyone, welcome to another video. So today is May 16th and it's Django's not birthday, but it's the 70th anniversary of his passing. So he passed away on May 16th, 1953. So it's been 70 years. And you know, without Django, I would have no career in music. So I owe him so much. Anyway, so what I figured we'd do today, I thought we could look at this fantastic solo that he played in, I think, 1946. A song called the Django's Tiger. I'm going to explain everything you need to know about the solo, and it's transcribed for you on SoundSlice. You'll find the link in the comments. But first, please like, please subscribe, please leave a comment. It makes such a huge difference with the YouTube algorithm. And lately it seems that the algorithm has been fairly nice to me. So please, let's keep up this momentum. This, as many of you know, this is one of my main sources of income, the whole online thing. And it would mean so much if you could do just that. And if you want to do a little bit more, because some of you actually do this, and really, my goodness, thank you so much. You guys are the best. Some of you are actually buying stuff on DC Music School, on SoundSlice, or you're buying my Gypsy Jazz Picking book on Amazon. You'll find all the links in the description box. Whatever you can do to help helps, and I really appreciate it. It allows me to make more videos like this. So this solo is very interesting because it's more conceptual than it is about specific licks or vocabulary. Conceptual in terms of harmony. And for those of you who are used to my channel, I talk about this thing, harmonic direction. And I do have a course on SoundSlice on guitar harmony, practical harmony for jazz guitar. And it talks a lot about this concept, harmonic direction. The gist of it is, it's less about outlining the chords that are being played by the rhythm section, but about understanding where the chords are going, what key you're in, what are the key centers, the movements. And so when you understand this concept, it is possible to superimpose many different other chords that sometimes may not even fit with what is being played by the rhythm section. It's kind of like, let's say you have to go to the park and you have a straight line to get to the park. And if you walk that straight line, that's obviously the most direct way. But maybe one day you want to, just want to go out for a walk and you want to go take a different path. And that's pretty much what harmonic direction is. You end up at the park no matter what, but you might take a detour just for the fun of it, just to add a little, just to spice up your life. And this solo is full of that. Because Django's Tiger is actually not really a composition. I think this thing that he does might be just an improvisation. Django's Tiger, the chord progression, is the main part to the song Tiger Rag, but played in the key of A. And I think Django's just improvising over the changes. And the song, at its core, is super simple. It's hard to hear exactly what the rhythm section is doing, but I kind of hear something like this. A major for 6 bars, E7 for another, is that 8 bars? I think so. Yeah, 8 bars, and then turn around. And then the second half would be A for 4 bars, A7 for 2 bars, D for 2 bars, and then this thing, D sharp diminish, A, F sharp 7, B7, E7, turn around. Very simple. And I hear sometimes the bass player is implying little other things, like on the E7, the bass is doing like kind of a B thing here. So E7 over B, which is the same as B minor 6. Anyway, I talk about all this stuff in my harmony course. So you can actually check that out. The first volume is free. It's a bestseller. SoundSlice. So you have what is seemingly a super simple chord progression, yet Django is playing a lot of sophisticated things. So he was really quite ahead of his time. So he does this thing. I don't know if I said it, but you'll have this whole solo transcribed on SoundSlice. So check out the pinned comment. By the way, you should also join my social media on Instagram or Facebook or something, because I have a book coming out relatively soon. It's kind of related to what we're talking about here. The whole idea of learning how to associate melodies to to the harmony. And there's also another course that I like on SoundSlide that I made. It's a course on phrasing and swing, because Django is incorporating a lot of the concepts that I teach in that course. So check it out. So let's get started. Django is playing a simple idea based on the A chord. And then you have this little interesting thing, which this note C natural can represent a lot of things. It can represent maybe E augmented. Remember, the rhythm section is focusing on A, just playing A, but Django is implying an E augmented. So that means in improvisation, while the rhythm section is playing A, you can play A, then E7 with augmented, and back to A. And you have to do this through voice leading. So for example, you can play something like this. See? That's that E augmented. Or you can do something like this. And by the way, I have to play quietly because I have neighbors, and in Japan, this whole thing about being polite is very important. So. See? Sounds nice, right? So it can be an E augmented, or it could be a G sharp 7. So you can make up another phrase, you know. Or maybe somewhere around here. So G sharp 7 is the same as A diminished. So already that's an instance of Django using this concept that I call harmonic direction to add some spice into his improvisation. So and there's a lot of over the bar line phrasing, like from connecting the A to E7. Over the bar line phrasing is, for example, let's say you have one bar of A going to one bar of E7. Over the bar line phrasing means that you play some idea on A and then you connect to the E7. You don't pause, there's no pause. And that's exactly what's going on here. And here as well. Then here you have this arpeggio. So he is superimposing a G sharp half diminished arpeggio over E7. And that just makes E9. And I'm convinced that he uses this fingering, but even though he played with two fingers. Because if you slow it down, you can hear this friction here. I made a video maybe 2 or 3 years ago about why it's kind of misleading to want to play with two fingers if you really want to understand Django's style. Django was only able to use two fingers for lead playing, and he was able to use these fingers for chords and whatnot. But in his mind, he was still thinking in terms of three fingers. So this is an example of that. So you should check out that video that I did maybe I think it was in 2020. Anyway. And then he does the same thing, but a half step above, while the rhythm section stays on E7. So it's just doing this effect. And there's over the bar line phrasing. And this is very interesting. This is a prime example of the difference between Django and Gypsy jazz. For me, Django is not Gypsy jazz. Gypsy jazz came from Django. It's kind of like a folk music that was born out of Django. Because when Gypsy jazz players play this song today, sometimes they add new harmonies. So instead of staying A, they might do. But that's not what the rhythm section was doing originally. And that's not what Django required of his rhythm section. And then they do this thing. They actually do this thing, F7. So Django's Tiger went from being an improvisation on the main part to Tiger Rag to being a full-fledged composition that people play as a standard nowadays. So anyway, E9 arpeggio to F9 arpeggio, back to E9. So this is pretty cool, like nice way to embellish an A chord. This is a nice melody that works well over over A major. I do it here sometimes. I play around with those notes. Okay, second half. This is where it gets really interesting. Remember, normally it's supposed to be 4 bars of A, then 2 bars of A7, then to D. But what Django is doing, he is superimposing a chord progression over this whole section, and it's going to lead us eventually to D. He is superimposing, well, an A, but in his A, he's thinking C sharp minor, because A and C sharp minor are the same. C sharp minor just happens to be an A major 7. So he's just actually just playing this note, but I think he was thinking like this. And then, so he's thinking this. Then after A7. So super clever. It's like, and he's not necessarily following like one bar. He's just doing this by feel. So it can be like for 3 beats, 2 beats. You know, it's very cool. So let me recap: C sharp minor, C minor, and then like B minor, which is actually the same as E7. Then A7. And what is that? I forgot how it goes, sorry. Something like that. Then to D. And this is where it gets really cool. He's thinking D, then D diminished, which is the same concept as earlier, A to G sharp 7, which is so D, but now we're in the key of D. Back to D, and then we're back on track. So just voice leading, and it's not always fits. It doesn't fit the 4/4 measure perfectly if you check out the transcription. So that's another clue about how to phrase in the style of Django. You don't always have to be perfect like a computer. So what was it? So F sharp like this. It's all voice leading. And then this thing. Sorry, this chord. So you have F sharp to B, and then you have this thing. Altered. So Django is way ahead of his time. And then you have this thing that Django was very fond of, this kind of saxophone trick. I call it saxophone trick, but I don't know. He often does it on the 9th of a major chord, or the dominant. So, if you want to know more about the picking, check out my Gypsy Jazz picking book on Amazon. You'll find the link in the description box. And then this arpeggio here. And it's all voice link from A to E7. So it's a very typical pattern. You find that in my Gypsy Jazz picking book, or you can check out my Sound Slice Gypsy Jazz beginner courses. They're really good. So E13. I'm going pretty fast because I'm assuming you're also looking at the transcription on Sound Slice as I explain all these little details. And then it's very interesting. He does not resolve to A major. He decides to take advantage of this harmonic direction concept. He stays on E7, but thinking this chord, this altered chord. And this altered chord, basically, it's an F minor 6 superimposed over E7. So that's a trick that Django liked to use, and a lot of gypsy jazz players today like to do as well. And Birel Legrand is one example of someone who is very, very fond of that. When you have, let's say you're in the key of D and you have an A7, you can superimpose B flat minor 6 over A7. But here it's supposed to be A major. It's the turnaround, but Django extends the E7 chord from before past the bar line. So it's very, very cool. And then you have the last half of the second chorus, where it's just doing this chromatic thing. Down, up, down. And then you have this A7 idea with over the bar line phrasing. 3 and 4 and... Sorry. And this is very interesting. I've said in many of my previous videos that in those days, they were not thinking in terms of scales, modes, or anything like that. They were thinking in terms of harmony and how to decorate the harmony through voice leading. And if you were to analyze this in terms of modes or scales, you end up using, I wouldn't say strange terminology, but you end up overthinking things, because you end up having Mixolydian, and then suddenly you end up having like Phrygian dominant, whatever you want to call it. Like it starts off as being A9, then it becomes A flat, A7 with a flat 9, and then A9 again. But really, it's just voice leading. It's just doing the 9, flat 9, back to 9, like that. And then you have this final phrase. It's all voice leading. Sorry. And that's the entire solo. This might not be a good solo to study if you're still exploring harmony, still learning songs. It's a good solo to learn if you like the solo and you want to play it and you want to make a cover of it. But for improvisation, it requires a little bit of experience, a little bit of know-how. So don't be too scared if you feel that it's overwhelming. But if you're at the level where you feel you can maybe tackle the concepts, then try to do similar things in your improvisation. And I would even suggest that you try to take these concepts and apply them to other songs. So for example, if you're playing Honeysuckle Rose in the key of F, where you have like G minor to C7, go in and out of C7 and C7 flat 9. Then F, then after C augmented, or F to E7, or yeah. And then going back maybe to the G minor, since we saw that in Django's Tiger in that first chorus, A is the same as C sharp minor, so it stands to reason that F is the same as A minor, and let's say the first A of Honeysuckle Rose going to the second A, somewhere before going to the second A on the G minor, you play A minor, which is the same as F, leads us back here, so chromatic, things like that. Or let's say you play a song like Coquette in the key of D. This is the original chord progression. So it's D to A7, A7, D, first turnaround. But instead of doing a turnaround, why don't you play B flat minor? So Or going back to honeysuckle rose, you can do that chromatic thing that we saw over the E7 F7 thing. Well, now we'll do it in C7, D flat 7, C7. That's how I would approach tackling these concepts. I would try to find many different situations where I could use similar concepts. So I hope that was useful. Please leave a comment, like, subscribe, and all that stuff. See you guys.